This is the second video about NLP Principles, which are officially called the NLP Presuppositions. It's probably useful that you watch the first one. I'll put a link to it in the comments. It's not essential that you watch all of the videos in the series, but it's probably useful to get an idea by watching the first one. Just in case you haven't, NLP Principles basically are things that, while they may not necessarily be true, it can be very useful to pretend that they're true. Today, the principle we're looking at is very simple, but it goes very deep, and it's simply this. It's easier to change ourselves than to try to change other people. And that's very simple to say, it's very simple to understand. It's not always as easy to put into practice. A lot of people think that as a hypnotist or hypnotherapist, whatever term you want to use, that I can change other people. That's simply not true. What I can do is create an environment that makes it easier for people to change themselves, but it's the other person that does the changing. It's not something that I do to them. So how does this play out in real life? And the answer is lots of places. Have you ever been tailgated when you're driving and somebody's driving too close to you? I don't know about you, but sometimes I find myself getting quite annoyed by that. I find it's unnecessary and it's quite dangerous. Now, driving can be quite dangerous anyway, so why make it more dangerous than it needs to be? Common responses to being tailgated are getting annoyed. The second one is slowing down to try and show your annoyance to the other person, try and get them to back off a bit, or even putting your brakes on from time to time to try and make the other person pull back. The second two of those, putting your brakes on or slowing down, effectively what you're doing is trying to change the other person. Now, I don't know if you've tried either of these. If you have, which one do you think works best? And I think the simple answer to that is neither of them work. This plays out in relationships as well, relationships with friends and family and romantic relationships. Do you think that there is such a thing as a person who always acts in the way that you'd like them to, and things that they do and say fit in perfectly with your way of looking at the world? Now, I don't think that person really exists. So the question is, what can you do about it? Let's say that you like the kitchen to be tidy and another person comes in, puts a dirty coffee cup next to the dishwasher when you've just spent 30 minutes cleaning the kitchen. Are you justified in getting annoyed about that? And I guess the simple answer, it depends on how much you value your relationship. Now, I'm being quite black and white here, and in reality things are probably not that simple and probably not quite that straightforward. So you have a need, a want or a desire to have the kitchen nice and tidy, and in a perfect world your partner would be sensitive to that and would always act in a way that's thoughtful and in a way that's going to help fulfill your values and your needs. But the world isn't perfect, and that's never going to happen, or it's unlikely to happen. And just because your partner's put that coffee cup down doesn't necessarily mean that they're trying to spoil your day. It might just mean they don't value tidiness as much as you do. Or it could mean that they're distracted, or it could be 100 different things. So you ask them in a nice, calm way not to do it again, and you try to explain to them why this is so important to you. And that would seem like a really valid approach. But what happens if things don't change in the future? What can you do then? Remember that it's easier to change ourselves than to change other people. If you're waiting for somebody else to change, you're probably going to be waiting for a long time. And even if you could succeed, at what cost? Is the other person going to feel resentment that you're not accepting them for who they are, or that you're focusing on their one negative point rather than their many positive points? And if they give in just to keep the peace, what's that going to do to the long-term relationship? Are you teaching them to put the coffee cup somewhere else, or are you teaching them to be a more subservient person? And is that what you really want to happen? The chances are, if you find something you don't like about them and they change it, you're going to find something else that you want them to change as well. And pretty soon, they're no longer the person you fell in love with anymore. And okay, I'm taking this to extremes here, but remember, a little piece of grit in your shoe, if it's left there for a long time, has the potential to become a really painful blister. In either case, with the coffee cup or the tailgater, you can simply ask yourself, how can I change? I don't like this situation and it's not going away. So what can I do to change myself? And with the tailgater, you know, if it's really bothering you, just pull over and let them go by. Maybe that's not your default behaviour, but you can change. Or you could ask yourself, what would need to happen in order for me to stop being frustrated by this and to be able to ignore it? Or you could think about the other person and think, I wonder what's going on in their life that makes them behave in this way. Or many other ways that you can change your thoughts, your behaviour and your attitude, which are the only things that you have control over. With the coffee cup, perhaps you could change by learning to become a more effective communicator. Because assuming that they're not doing this deliberately to spoil your day, perhaps you're not communicating effectively just how important this is to you. There's a whole field of study that's really cool called non-violent communication, and it's all about how to communicate your needs, your wants and your desires in a really effective way. You could develop the skill of noticing in the moment that you're focusing on one negative thing and turn that around to start thinking about all the many reasons that you love them in the first place, all the kindnesses that they've showed to you over the years, all the thoughtful things that they've done for you. And when you do that, suddenly that coffee cup will start to seem a lot less significant. So now you've taken two situations that were both bothering you and turned them into personal development learning opportunities. Is this easy to do? No, it isn't. Is it worth it? Well, it is if you value your sanity and you value your relationships. Am I preaching to you here? Well, I certainly hope it doesn't come across that way, because I don't always get this right and I don't always remember to do this. But when I do remember to do this, my life runs more smoothly. And the more that I do it, the more it becomes a habit. Does it take effort, planning and commitment to maintain this mindset? Yes, it does. That's why it's called personal development, not personal, learn something and then you have it for the rest of your life. But maybe next time that you find yourself frustrated by somebody else's actions, ask yourself the questions, am I expecting them to change or am I trying to change them? And if the answer to either of those is yes, then it might be worth looking to make a change somewhere else first.